Hello investors, welcome to the channel. Here, I talk about long-term investing in companies that pay a dividend. This is known as dividend growth investing. My name is Michael, and today we're going to start off with looking at how the market ended for the week and then look at stock futures. Just taking a quick look at the major indices for the week. For the S&P 500 index, it is down 2.26%. For the Nasdaq index, it is down 1.17%. And lastly, for the Dow Jones index, it is down 2.65%. The markets are down this week as numbers come in which reflect negatively on the overall economy. Let's look at some news affecting the market. Taking a look at this article right here, we can see that the job report for April has been announced and over 20.5 million people have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. This means that the unemployment rate has increased from about 14% to about 24% in just 1 month. Staggeringly, this article shows us that over 36 million people have applied for unemployment, which means that the unemployment rate is even more than that. Just to note, the number reported is just the amount of people who have been applying for unemployment. The real unemployment number is actually much higher. We just don't know that exact number just yet. Moving onward from the unemployment numbers, let's take a look at how it has affected the national debt. According to this article right here, the U.S. Treasury expects to borrow over $4.5 trillion for the fiscal year as stimulus spending soars. Before the pandemic, the U.S. was only borrowing $700 billion. It makes you wonder how much money the U.S. is able to spend, and furthermore, how it plans to repay the budget deficit. It seems that the government is giving away endless amounts of money in order to combat against the pandemic. With quantitative easing, the federal balance sheet has exploded to over $7 trillion. Now, part of the money being used in order to combat against the pandemic will be passed through legislation. Most specifically, this past week, the House of Representatives approved a new bill called the HEROES Act and sent it to the Senate for debate in order to obtain additional stimulus relief during the pandemic crisis. This bill is over 1,800 pages long and contains a lot of information. Generally, this bill is seen as one proposed by Democrats. Here are some highlights of the bill. Stimulus checks are to be eligible for all dependents regardless of age. Before, in the CARES Act, only children who are under the age of 17 was able for the $500 stimulus. Now, all dependents are eligible for $1,200 under this new bill. There is a huge distinction between dependents and children because a dependent is someone who is to be defined as a person other than the taxpayer or spouse who entitles the taxpayer to claim a dependency exemption. Furthermore, children can be considered as dependents. In addition, though needy adults that are taken care of by the taxpayer are also considered dependents. Lastly, the amount of eligible dependents is capped at 3 per household. It seems that this will only be a one-time payment rather than an ongoing payment plan every month. If we look further down here on page 161, we can see that there are some limitations on the adjusted gross income, which was the same as what would have been found in the CARES Act. In addition, there are also phase-out plans for the adjusted gross income. The next thing to note is that under this new bill, stimulus checks are eligible for those with Social Security numbers or taxpayer identification number. In the previous CARES Act, you could only get a stimulus check if you had a social security number. Now, under the HEROES Act, you are eligible for a stimulus check if you have a social security number or a taxpayer identification number. This is good because some people are married to a spouse who do not have a social security number, and so in those types of situations, the spouse would be out of luck for getting a stimulus check. Now, if we go over to the IRS, we can find out what constitutes as a taxpayer identification number, also known as a TIN. On this website right here, a TIN would be considered as number 1, a social security number, number 2, an employer identification number, number 3, individual taxpayer identification number, number 4, taxpayer identification number for pending U.S. adoptions, and number 5, prepared taxpayer identification number. So the mentioned can be used as a TIN for the new stimulus check eligibility. It should be noted that non-resident alien individuals are not eligible for the stimulus check. Non-residential alien individuals are people who are not considered as U.S. citizens and therefore do not possess a green card or substantial presence test used to determine tax status. However, non-residential alien individuals must pay taxes on income that they earn in the U.S. Something important to note in this bill is that stimulus checks will not be reduced or offset with respect to past due support. Payments like child support or spousal support will not be used to reduce the amounts of stimulus an individual can receive. In addition, stimulus checks will not be subjected to garnishments. Before, if you owed any money to debt collectors, then those debt collectors were allowed to take your stimulus check before you could even receive it in order to pay off any debts that you owe. Now, stimulus checks will be protected, so you should receive the full amount. In addition, stimulus checks will be provided to individuals who are entitled to payment. This includes SSI, SSDI, railroad retirement, or veteran affairs. Also in this bill is hazard pay, which is proposed for at least a minimum of 33 industries. This entails $10,000 of hazard pay to be allocated to essential workers, which is considered as premium pay. This money would also benefit those who have passed away from the pandemic, as the money would go to the next of kin as a lump sum. Employers must apply for this grant as it will cover wages and payroll taxes. Any unused funds will be returned to the federal government. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the extensions which are granted by this newly proposed bill. For example, an extension of the federal pandemic unemployment compensation has been added to this bill. This part of the bill is the additional $600 of weekly benefits on top of the state unemployment benefits. Lastly, there is an extension of the pandemic extended unemployment compensation. Essentially, this provides an additional 13 weeks of unemployment benefit on top of the maximum typical amount given for the unemployment benefits during the pandemic. Another thing that should be mentioned is the amount of student loan forgiveness. In this bill, there is a proposal of $10,000 in student loan forgiveness. Now, it's important to note that there are essentially two types of student loans. The first type of student loans that we are going to talk about are federal student loans. These are loans that have been suspended for payment until September 30th of 2020. Late fees won't be applicable until 1 month after September 30th of 2021, and this only applies up to the first $10,000 in student loans. In addition, interest is not to be capitalized on federal student loans. This contrasts with private student loans. Private student loans will be taken care of by the government, in which the federal government will make payments of up to $10,000 on your behalf. In addition, these private student loans, which have been paid off by the government, will additionally have a positive effect on your credit score. Lastly, the private student loans will not accrue interest and therefore would not have been capitalized based on this new proposed bill. Overall, this bill is really good for many people, and I'm hoping that it will pass in both the House and the Senate. Eventually will reach the presidency to be signed into law, but only time will tell. And there are some doubts of whether or not this bill will pass, because if we take a look at the Federal Reserve, we can see how much money has been spent since the pandemic. On this website right here, we can look at the balance sheet of the federal government. And as you can see, looking back here, there was the crisis from 08 to 09, where there was a lot of government spending, and it decreased a little bit and then stuck to a normalized trend. Then we had another disaster which caused us to spend a little more, and then it tapered off and was beginning to decrease. But now, due to the pandemic, the amount of spending has gone up astronomically once again. So it stems to reason out how much money can the Federal Reserve spend in order to keep the economy afloat. Only time will tell. So that's pretty much the news for this week. Let's take a look at my portfolio to see how it compares to the overall market. If we take a look at my portfolio, in the past year, it is down 1378, which is a loss of about 23%. In the past quarter, it is down about $2,100, which is a loss of about 20%. In the past month, it is up 370, which is a return of about 4.61%. In the past week, the gains have been about 430, which is a return of about 5.37%. And in the past day, the portfolio has been performing pretty well. It is up $112, which is 1.37%. This is pretty good. It's pretty much in line with the market and even beating it just a little bit. Looking over here, the portfolio has earned some dividends. From here, we can see that it earned 2 cents from ABM, 52 cents from CVS, 27 cents from Lowe's, 11 cents from American Express, 35 cents from Clorox, 8 cents from General Dynamics, 8 cents from MasterCard, and 6 cents from National Health Investors. These dividends that I earned are a result of me owning shares of each company. This is money that I did not have to put any effort into earning besides clicking a few buttons to buy shares. Essentially, I'm earning money while I sleep. This is referred to as passive income. Earnings which are derived from an enterprise like a rental property or company, which require little to no effort to earn and maintain. Although these amounts may seem small, every little bit helps and will eventually snowball into something bigger through compounded interest. So that's pretty much the update portion of my portfolio. I thank everybody for watching this video until the end, and I hope that you found it helpful. If you liked the video, then please give it a thumbs up, as it will help grow the channel immensely. If you have any comments or questions, then please leave them down below in the video, and I'll do my best to personally address it, either in the comments or answer it in future videos. Again, I greatly appreciate everyone watching my videos, and I hope to speak to you all again very soon.